Thanks everyone for being here on Zoom, and thank you KW Living and KW Elevate. We're going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Gina Ferrer, the productivity coach here at Keller Williams Legacy. And I have with me today, Brian. Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do?
I'm Brian Jones. I work with Jose Medina and Associates. I'm an ISA. I've been with them for 2 years now. So that's basically what I do.
Can you say what some people don't know what an ISA stands for?
ISA is an inside sales agent. So basically we nurture our leads, try to create relationships with them, and pass them on to our outside agents.
Yeah. So basically he does what other agents aren't doing and should be doing to make it a little bit more of a smooth process. So I thought his expert opinion in this territory would be helpful today. So yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Elevate and Living, would you like to add anything this morning before we get started?
Nope, we're good.
All good at Elevate?
We are all good.
Okay, perfect. We also have guests today. We have Cross Country Home Mortgage. I see Cliff out there and possibly Jessica. At some point, I will find a good spot to put them in. I just found out yesterday they were joining us. So I don't exactly have a breaking point with them. So we'll see where we can find a spot that works out for them. All right. Today's topic is qualifying potential buyers and sellers and following up, which is a pretty important thing. So learning skills on one, what we've done a lot of is lead generating. What do we do to get the business, and how do we capture their contact information? All of that is really great, but if we don't know how to qualify them and get them set up in some kind of a plan to be able to nurture them, it goes flat to have this gigantic database that we don't do anything with, right? So some of the first steps, of course, are qualifying those leads. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about what myth understandings you all might have about qualifying leads. Where do you find buyers and sellers? How to classify if they're able, ready, and willing. Also to categorize them into an A, B, and C status, basically, for buyers and sellers. And, why do we qualify them and what does that actually mean? And then we'll kind of talk about what we do to follow up and nurture those people. Your section, I noticed, I've got both books in front of me today, is really short. So I'll try to, there won't be too hard to kind of keep up with what page, and there'll be a couple of breakouts with some exercises that we'll do. And then we'll have questions. So we're going to go ahead and roll right in there and get started. So I want to start with reading this quote. Your number one job as a real estate agent is to find ways to get in the path of motivated buyers and sellers. Gary Keller in The Shift says that. So we need to get in their path. So when we do our lead generating, that puts us in their path, but then we need to figure out, how motivated are these people so that we can determine not if we want to work with them. So let me first say that. A lot of people, especially new in this business, or in particular, if you've been licensed in the past 2.5 years, I know it because I live it every day with you guys. You're looking for the fastest path to a sale. I get it. We all did in the beginning of our career. You were lucky enough, and I know not everyone feels that lucky, but I promise you are. You're lucky enough to have started in a time where that path was shorter. It's about to get longer. It doesn't mean you're going to sell less houses. It just means you have to work harder at understanding how to qualify those people and to know what to do to nurture them, which is a big part of what Brian does every day. And that's something that we all should be doing. And until you get to the point where you can hire an ISA, you are the ISA. You are the outside sales professional and you are the inside sales professional. If you don't do the inside sales part, there won't be appointments. You'll accidentally bump into a few. But if you want to really sell and hit your goal, and if you have a goal of wanting this to be your business. I hear a lot, I have another job, but I really would love for real estate to be my full-time career at some point. Well, then you need to understand that the nurture process in this business is a real thing. And you haven't had to deal with that much in the past 2 years, simply because buyers and sellers have a shorter path because listings have been quick to sell. So what that looks like with the seller is very different, and the buyers look at a couple houses and they get panicked into making an offer. So that path is also shorter than it had been, but it will become, again, a much longer period. To imagine that I used to go at a listing appointment and say, so Kim, we're going to be on the market about 4 to 6 months, so we should start looking at houses in about 3 months. Imagine saying those words and then staying in constant communication even while you're listed. So don't forget, we have to not just nurture people we're trying to work with. We forget oftentimes that we still have to nurture and follow up with the people that we are working with. In particular, when you have listings that are on the market for a long time, it's easy to not know what to do after so many weeks, right? So we need to be able to know how to handle those situations. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. First, we're going to start with the myths that you all have. And so on your book, we're on page 13.3. So when we're new to something, we think that it might be, I guess, being new in this industry, what would be a path that would block you from trying to move forward, which we talked a little bit about day one with limiting beliefs. So let's talk about limiting beliefs. So one of the limiting beliefs is if they don't respond to me, they aren't going to buy or sell. That's not, obviously, that's not true. That's not true. By the way, we tell ourselves that to give us a pat on the back to say, you've done all you can, move on to the next person. It's not true. Don't pat yourself on your back. You haven't done a good job because you haven't finished it yet. Just because they don't respond, I mean, I can tell you the CRM that I use, and I know you guys use too, they say 15 communications without them responding is when you should finally put them like in an archive, right? 15. That's a combination of touches with emails and things like that. What do you experience with people that don't respond?
We really don't go with the number 15, which sounds really good. I mean,
I'm happy to hear you say that.
No, I mean,
yeah,
that does make sense, but I mean, I really try not to give up on too many people unless they're just tell me not to call them.
Yeah.
Or if they're really just not active at all. We typically keep track of their activity online, and we do send emails. Usually if someone's actively looking, I can see that they're looking, I'm probably calling them at least once a week, whether they answer or not. I'll even call them back if they hang up on me.
Nice.
It's not comfortable,
No.
but I don't give up on people because, those people are the ones that are, and 6 months from now, they're going to have a showing request online. So I'm going to jump on them. Like I said, it's not comfortable. You feel kind of out of place or like really wasting your time, but you're not with a lot of them. So we'll just stay at it unless they're just really, there's nothing. I would say if they're not active, I will still go back every 3 or 4 months and at least look into it, send an email, a text, or give them a call. More than likely, they're not going to answer, but I tried. So.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say it's not comfortable.
No.
So you do this full time all day, every day, and you can still say it's not comfortable. So it's not. I mean, there's just always things in our job that's not comfortable. I'm not comfortable doing yard work, but it has to get done, So, I mean, there's just things that we have to do, right? I'm not comfortable folding laundry, but no one else is going to do it. So, there's just things in our life that we have to do. And this is our full-time job. And that's the uncomfortable part. And I promise you, when you say to yourself, I need to admit somebody here. When you say to yourself, I'm bugging them, that's an excuse not to continue. That really is. Like he said, if they say stop, if they want you to stop, they're going to say stop, right? we all live in a unsubscribed world. We can unsubscribe to text, we can unsubscribe to emails, and you can say to someone, please stop. When I'm following up with somebody, I give them that out by saying in my voicemail, if you would like for me to not continue to follow up, please just shoot me a text and let me know. Let me tell you how many people actually take the step to do that. Not much. You? Yeah, they don't. And so the key here is think about it when you're buying something. I'm a consumer, we're all consumers. If I'm buying a car, I'm buying patio furniture, whatever it is, I want the salesperson to be there when I'm ready. If I walk into a store and I'm looking to buy patio furniture and I'm just right now looking, I don't need to be bothered. But when I found the one that I want and I need to order it or I need to find out more about it, then I'm like waiting, looking around, and then there's nobody. Interestingly enough, wouldn't it be great if they were just standing there out of the way and I could see them and then just say, hey, come on over now. And that's basically same as us. We need to be seen in the distance so that when they're ready, they'll reach out. Make sense?
How do you handle, do not call lists?
Well, I
You
mean,
just,
if they gave you their phone number, it doesn't qualify for the do not call.
I have that from Reddit, 'cause I've got a whole list in my neighborhood.
Well, different, yeah. So when you get a list, I don't know if everyone can hear, she asked, what do we do about the do not call list? When you buy data and you get phone numbers, you have to cross-reference unless some, like Vulcan, I know, it runs it through the do not call, I believe. Yes. And some of them do not, so you would then have to. But if somebody registers on your site or they sign in at an open house, they gave you their phone number, which then they gave you permission to use it.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yes,
If they call on a for sale sign, do you think that that means that you can return their call?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they called and they were looking for information and you're returning their call, right? In that case, they've given you permission to follow up. It's when you're on the do not call list, that's because you don't want random telemarketers. And that in a sense would fall into us too, when we're prospecting for business. Okay? What other myths? What other things can you guys think of? What are stumbling blocks for you with qualifying buyers and sellers? Anyone on the Zoom or anybody in either has any examples of that? What myths you think you might hold? Or those limiting beliefs?
Like that, and where they say, don't text me. So does that mean I can't call?
No.
That's
So
what I-
Ken said they've said to him, don't text me. And so we have to find out, and that brings up a great point. Find out what their preferred communication is. I mean, I'm sure you asked that, right?
Yeah, we do. And even as you mentioned, text, with our CRM Boomtown now, they just started here within, I don't know, the last 8 months, where when you send someone a text,
It's
it automatically gives them
Yeah,
an option
hate
to
Right.
put end or
Don't
stop.
love that. Yeah.
So we get a lot more of that now, but I'm still gonna call them. You didn't tell me not to call you, just told me not to
Right,
text you.
right.
I'm still gonna email you unless you
That's right.
opt out of our emails.
Yeah.
But then through our CRM, if they do opt out of any of those options, it will not allow us through the system to send them another message. So
Let me also mention this, when they unsubscribe from either the MLS or some other source, I'm assuming Command's the same, I know Boomtown's like this. Once they've unsubscribed, and then maybe in 3 months, they call you back and you go to set them up in a search, it's not gonna let them get the emails because they unsubscribed. And it's extremely difficult to explain to them where they need to go back and resubscribe. So the quick answer to that is give me a different email address.
Yeah.
So, because that does happen. Ever have a buyer where they bought a house and you know that they're one of those that will continue to look, so you immediately stop their search? Then we can restart it up if the deal falls through, but if they unsubscribe, you're not, and a deal falls through, they're not going to be able to just easily be reset up in a search. Anything else? Anybody else have any kind of myths or limiting beliefs in regards to prospecting buyer and sellers leads? All right. Moving on. All right. So we're going to jump into a couple of stats and then we're going to talk about that. How buyers found their agent. And this was done, this survey was done in 2021, so it's pretty recent. The National Association of Realtors did this. 47% of all buyers were a referral from a friend or a neighbor. So I'm the kind of a consumer where I'm probably going to ask someone, if I don't sell real estate, I'm going to ask friends and family, who did you use and why? Now, I had a nice conversation with Ken about this yesterday, actually. And so remember that usually, not always, there's two people buying a house and two people selling a house in most cases. Don't forget that you could be not talking to the decision maker. So if that person's putting you off, you need to figure out, well, is their spouse the decision maker? So that's one thing. But I said in my conversation with Ken yesterday, I'm going to ask for my friends to give me a referral because I want to work with someone that I can say we know a mutual person, right? That's just, I prefer that. But if that person does not do what I need them to do, and I randomly get online and I start looking and somebody else is following up and giving me the information I want, I'm absolutely not going to just stick with the person who was handed to me easily. That doesn't mean that they don't have to work for it. Does that make sense? So you still have to work hard on your referrals, I guess is what I'm saying. So 47% there. There only 13% used an agent that they previously used. So what does that tell you?
The people not following up.
Yeah, they don't have a past client database. So your best source of repeat business or referral business isn't just friends and family. It's somebody that actually used you for real estate. So again, if I'm looking for people to give me a referral, I'm not just saying, who do you know that sells real estate? That doesn't tell me if they do a good job. I want to know, who did you use to help you buy and sell? Not who's your friends. I don't care that your husband's ex-wife sells real estate. I care about who did you use and why, right? So that's a huge untapped market right there of past clients that aren't getting followed up with. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do with past clients.
With past clients, we do have a client for life situation to where we keep following it. We have someone that actually does that. And we do, typically our agents follow up with our past clients, but we do occasionally, like with any other, I don't know, a promotion or anything we got going on, we'll follow up with them. If they do show up as like doing switches online, if they show some activity, we'll definitely follow up with them and say, and obviously we have recorded who they worked with, and we'll, strike a conversation. I know you've worked with Gina in the past. Just wanted to see how things were going, if you have any real estate needs. So definitely worth a follow-up. I don't know what the statistics are, but past clients there are people who buy every 7 years, I think. I don't know what the number is. I think it's like every 7 years.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know a lot of those people, but apparently there's a lot of them out there. So that's we do follow up with them, and we do have like our client for life person that follows up with them, and we check in on them.
Yep. And and this will be my 25th year in real estate in January. And I can tell you that I have sold to repeat people over and over and over again, because there are people that just like to buy a new house all the time. So it's even shorter in some of their cases. So it's always an easy deal. It's an easy client when they call you up and say, it's me again. We're ready to start looking again. We want to sell our house again. And usually in those cases, you've got 2 transactions. I can't tell you how many times they tell me, can't even believe it, but it's the damn calendars. I even had a guy recently last year who gave me a referral. They weren't buying or selling, but they're a repeat past client. And he said, Gina, we love you, but I don't always year over year remember your name, except for that you send me those damn magnetic calendars that I have on the side of my file cabinet. So he said, I looked right over and all your information was right there. And now we've got a referral for you. So make it happen with that. Past clients, it's real easy.
Something as simple as a Christmas card, birthday card.
Right.
Just as an inside sales agent, I'm sending out Christmas cards this year just because I've built relationships with people over the phone, and you want to keep your name in front of them.
So I do Thanksgiving cards. I know some of you in my coaching program have heard me say it. I purposely do Thanksgiving cards, not because I'm worried about offending someone who doesn't celebrate Christmas, because by the way, if you know me, you know I don't mind offending people. And so that isn't the reason. It's because Thanksgiving cards are something that stands out. And it's before the rush of Christmas cards. So I do Thanksgiving cards and I do make them really personal. So I do them on Shutterfly. And I actually put like family photos or fall pictures, things like that to make a good connection, because I'm not sending them to 5,000 people in my database. I start with the people that I've sold houses with this past year, and then I go into my top 50, and then I go into my SOI. So it's a great way to have a touch in there that's different. And if I miss the Thanksgiving, because sometimes I do, because I don't get them ordered in time, I do Happy New Year cards along with the calendar. So
you
there's-
insert the calendar with your card.
So the card,
Magnetic.
the magnetic calendar has my card right on it.
You insert that in your card, your
I do.
Thanksgiving card. And
That's right,
okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Yep. So if I get the magnets in time, or I get Thanksgiving cards out in time, it's a Thanksgiving. If it doesn't come in time, it's a New Year's. Other stats. 7% inquire about property they saw online. So those are your Opcity, Zillow, Boomtown, Realtor.com leads. 5% for sale open house signage, so any kind of a for sale sign or an open house sign. 5% referral from another agent, so that means I don't want to drive to Cincinnati and sell a house, so I'm going to refer that out. So making those connections is always a good deal. I have an agent in Cleveland with a Remax who sold a listing of mine years ago here in Canton. And ever since then, we had a great working relationship. Every time she has a client in this area, she refers them to me. And same thing, I have a relationship with her now, and we refer business back and forth whenever the time comes. And then 4% visited an open house. The numbers are a little bit less than that in a for sale by owner situation. I'm sorry, in a first time home buyer situation. The only one that's higher is the referral. So it goes from 47% to 57% for a first time home buyer. Now that's probably because they're certainly don't know. They're going to ask parents, they're going to ask other family friends, things like that. All right. So let's talk about that. We already kind of talked about the myth understandings. What do you feel about those stats? Anyone questions or thoughts? Does it make sense?
Seems like the Zillow, Opcity, that seems to be low.
Low? I guess in comparison to the others, we're at 100% and it has to be divided some way. So I think what they probably capture there with that 7%? Yeah, 7% is this. Those are leads that turned into sales. So it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of internet leads. It just means 7% of them turned into sales. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's right on the money. When we say 3 to 5% with some internet sources, 7's a little bit higher. So for you guys, what kind of lead sources are you following up with?
You mean like as far as Opcity and stuff
They're
like
coming
that?
in from Boomtown, they're coming in from your website, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Boomtown is basically our website leads. We do chase FSBOs and expires withdrawals every day. That's the most of it. And we do have inbound like HomeLight, Opcity, Ojo, Zillow. We do have some Zillow leads, I think, like Garfield Heights area.
Okay.
I think there was another one. There's a few Fast Experts. So
Okay.
we have quite a bit of like referral systems we use. And then obviously our buyer leads through Boomtown that come through our website. There's tons of those.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess to look at just in my personal leads, I probably have around 4,000 leads that I'm followed with.
Wow.
So, and that's, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but there's a system, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not calling 4,000 people a day,
No,
but you know, it's just, and then there's more coming every day.
Yeah.
So just because every day, today I'll do expireds that come in, tomorrow I'll do FISBOs, and every other day. So every day they're coming in, and it's just more and more. But they're everywhere. There's a lot. Is that what you're asking?
Yep. So it's a lot of different sources, internet based, basically though. So it's not just one
Mhm.
stream. It's a bunch of different funnels into, I'm assuming they all funnel into Boomtown for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything
Yep.
eventually goes, that's our follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah, so you should definitely have a CRM, whether you're using Command or Boomtown or whatever that is. You need to have a place that all those leads are funneling into, because you can't have an organized system with 4,000 or even 400 leads if you don't have them someplace, and let the virtual assistant work for you. Right? So we're gonna talk a little bit later about what that follow-up, looks like. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about qualifying the leads in an A, B, C category. And I know some of you in my coaching, if you guys hear me talk about this all the time. What is an A, B, and a C? So they have something here in the book, and I think you guys are now on page 313.4. Yep. They have a little bit of a different category. So I've always said that A clients are 0 to 30 days. And let me define that a little bit. And you might have something different than you guys follow, or it could be the same. A to me is someone that would buy or sell in 0 to 30 days. It doesn't mean they do. We have to find them a house, right? Or we have to get their house sold, and we can't necessarily determine exactly when that's going to happen. So to me, there's still an A buyer, and they could be for 6 months. So I just want to clarify that. Someone recently asked me that question. I have an A buyer and they've been an A for 2 months now. Are they still an A? Well, the question is this: would they buy or sell right now if the situation fell in their lap? Meaning we found a buyer for their house, or they found a house.
Would that be considered a hot lead or
Yeah.
a hot lead?
Yep,
Okay.
that's a hot. So same thing, if you're categorizing them with those type of, it would be considered a hot lead. So, and for that follow-up, what do you guys do? So what are you doing, Brian, for following up with A leads? What's the frequency and what kind of follow-up?
Well, typically in my position, when we have an A lead that I'm talking to on the phone, to me, this means that they can buy and they will buy. They want to, they're very motivated. I mean, and I guess for me, I want to get them in front of an outside agent as soon as possible. So honestly, there's really not a follow-up for me on that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're ready to go. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm going to be sending them listings until they have that meeting, whether it be tomorrow or next week. I want to make sure that they're getting listings that meet their criteria. And like I said, on my side, there's not a lot of follow-up because I'm setting an appointment with our outside agent because they're ready. If they have a home to sell, obviously our first thing to do is to get somebody to their house to look at their home, and they need to come up with a plan as far as selling and buying at the same time. That's where an outside agent comes in.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the follow-up, there's not, I don't know. I
You
guess
can recognize an A how?
when they're ready to buy, one thing is they gotta be qualified. I mean, that's to me, there's a lot of people, once you start talking about the financial portion of it, then they it's either, usually you can tell it's either yes or no.
Right.
Some of them, they're not sure, they don't even know what it looks like to buy a home. So you want to kind of guide them in the direction, refer them to a lender. And if it does come to that, these people are ready to buy, they want to buy, but they're not qualified, or they don't know if they can. I'm going to have so-and-so lender call them, or I'm going to say, do you mind if I give your information to this lender, or will you call them? Usually I want to give their information to the lender, because once you hang up with them, you don't know if they're actually going to call or not.
And I love that. That's a fabulous point. In asking their permission, then they can't be annoyed when someone's calling them. They gave you permission.
So I'm like, yeah, can I just give your information to the so-and-so lender? I'll have them call you today or tomorrow. Usually I'm pushing for today because I'll get on the phone and call them right away. Say, hey, I need you to call them now. And then my follow-up would be probably within 2 days. I'm calling them back, say, hey, did you talk to so-and-so lender here? How did things go with that?
And are you setting a task to do in
Yes.
Newtown? Then,
Mhm.
yep. So make sure you will not remember, guys, when you're working with even a handful of people, it's listen, it's hard for me to remember. Even just on my few pending listings, oh my gosh, I forgot to call. They like fell off my radar entirely and I have a for sale sign in front of their house. So it's extremely easy and so that would fall into the A for able there. So when we're looking at the able, willing and ready, able means that I can do it. I'm able to get pre-approved or, getting them in with the lender would also look like this. Can I buy without selling? Or do I need to sell first and then I'm pre-approved? My pre-approval is pending my house selling, which is a huge conversation. Again, getting somebody in there is a good idea.
I did want to add, make sure that's your priority to call them. Like the next day or within 2 days. Because now they're looking at houses.
Yep.
They're riding around, they're looking at houses and they don't know, most people I find, I hate to sound negative, but they don't know about loyalty to an agent. So they're gonna ride by, they're gonna see this house, they're gonna see this person's name on the sign, they're gonna call them. And now you're done. So you've lost them. I mean, you could maybe get them back, but they don't understand, a lot of people don't understand how this works, that they don't understand the benefit of working with an agent to help them buy a house. They're just gonna call whoever's named on the sign or whatever. So that follow-up, when they're ready and they're able, or they're really motivated, you have to stay with them.
Well, and here's what I've gotten a lot too. Well, I just called the listing agent because they represent the seller. I didn't know when I called and looked at the house with them that meant that they were doing it to represent me. Because it's not their job to know representation. It's our job to explain it to them.
Is that
And-
hard? Sorry,
go ahead.
Karen. Is
No.
that hard at that point, like say someone we're working with and they haven't signed anything with us as a buyer's agent? If they've reached out to someone.
So
that they-
technically,
that person say, "I'm
the
here
consumer
for-"
guide is something we should be going over with, not
Okay.
just before you step into a house.
Okay.
Before you are actually acting as their representation. So there's no reason why you can't be explaining that consumer guide to them over the phone.
Okay.
I'll give you a little tip with consumer guides too. Create a loop. I have a loop that's just called consumer guides. And within it, each folder has a name, and that's the person's name who I sent the consumer guide to. Whether they sign it or they don't, I've done my due diligence, so no one's ever going to say, if someone's stealing a client of mine, well, she didn't get the consumer guide signed. Because the law doesn't say we have to get it signed, it says that we have to present it. So I can show in the history and dot loop that I did in fact send it to them. And it just gives you another reason to send them something. Go ahead and give me your email address. By the way, it's never can I have. So write that down. It's never can I have your email address. That's a yes or no question. It's go ahead and give me your email address. Now they have to think twice about then saying, wait a minute, no, I don't want to. I don't know that I've ever had someone say no, other than, oh gosh, I don't even have an email. Like that does happen occasionally. Or I love when people say, my husband and I share an email. But really what that means is they never check their email, right? I'm
Yeah,
sure you get that a lot too. So the able falls into a lot of categories, in particular financing and about selling their house. I'll also tell you having a conversation with them that looks like this is extremely important. So it's qualifying the lead and having an expectations conversation. If you want to look like the professional, then you should be having expectations conversations with them. Even over the phone, if you haven't gotten a chance to get in front of them to do a buyer consultation or a seller consultation, an expectations conversation is something that you have with a professional. You have an expectations conversation when you go to the doctor's office, right? Why wouldn't they? If you want them to look at you as the professional and not just some entertainment guide who opens up the door for them, then you should be having those conversations. And another limiting belief is I'm being pushy. That's a limiting belief. There's ways of saying things that it can never be taken as pushy, such as do I have your permission to give the lender your information? You've asked permission. That's not, I'm going to have the lender call you, or you just take over and have the lender call them. You've asked permission, so that's not pushy. But if they have to sell a house first, in my mind, if A has to happen before B, then we need to list the house. If you can't buy till you sell, then the first thing to do is get the house listed. And then the expectations conversation is, let me explain to you the benefits of doing this. One, we don't have to do a contingent offer. And if we do find something and we have to, at least the house is listed. Two, if you're worried that it sells too quick, because most people that have to buy or can't buy until they sell, their problem is, what if my house sells too fast? I don't want to be homeless. That's okay. There's contingencies you can do on the backside with your listing, just like you can with a buyer. In today's market, I don't know if you guys experience this, but or if it's on to the agents by the time this conversation happens. But when I have a seller that says, what if it sells before I find something? My answer is, we can accept the offer contingent on you finding something within 30 days. Most buyers in today's market are the ones who are going to agree to that contingency rather than the reverse. That makes sense. All right, questions about A buyers and qualifying A buyers, and we're going to go into some scripts here in a few. Okay, B buyers. So to me, buyers, not just buyers, buyers and sellers that are B category are 30 to 90 days. And again, same thing. It just means that they would buy within 30 to 90. What the question would be when I'm asking my qualifying questions, why aren't they an A? Well, there's something standing in their way, such as I have to sell my house first. And I don't even want to get my hopes up. I've already lost out on 8 properties this summer. We want to sell first. We're going to go live in an air. This is a thing, guys. I have a client who's been staying in Airbnbs all summer because they wanted to get the most out of their house, and they're renting Airbnbs for 2 weeks at a time. That's a thing because they have 2 dogs, so they can't find a rental. So that's a thing. Didn't know. In any case, I want to sell first, or I want to buy first, and then I'll sell if I can, or I have something in my way. So another reason that there might be a client who's a B is I don't want to move at this time of the year, whatever time that might be. Or I have to wait for the school year to end because we're switching school districts. So I can't list and sell my house until May because I'm going to be leaving the school district. So, but as soon as May comes, I'm ready to go. That could be a B client. There's all kinds of reasons. And when we go into the different scripts about qualifying buyers and sellers, those are the kind of questions that you're going to be asking them. And a C would be anything beyond 90 days. So my job would be to try to get the C's, and I'm sure Brian as well, to be B's or go straight to an A with conditions that would have to fall into place, and get my B's to be A's. And so like if you're using Boomtown or some other CRM where you're not tagging them as A, B, C, HOT would be your A's, Nurture is your B's. Your C's could be Nurture, but they're probably Watch. How do you categorize that?
That would be,
Okay. Yep. So Watch doesn't mean that I'm not following up with them. They're not archived. Archive would be the people that say, please stop calling me. I'm not ever putting anybody in trash unless I have incorrect information, meaning I have an incorrect phone number and an incorrect email address, and I have no way of communicating with them. So then they would go in trash. But they're never deleted. They're never deleted. Actually, you can't in particular in Boomtown. I think you can delete in Command, but I'm not 100% on that. So archive people are the stop call me. However, that doesn't mean that they don't revive sometimes. So depending on your CRM, if it's giving you information, which it should, giving me data, sometimes that CRM is going to tell you, this person who you have in archive, sometimes even in trash, they've come back to the site. I mean, I have a person who's been in trash and his name is exclamation points. And so guess what? I always refer to him as the name that he gave me. If someone gives me their name is Mickey Mouse, I say, how's it going, Mickey? I mean, that's their name. That's what they said. So that's what I'm gonna call them. And then someday they might give me their real name if they keep looking at the site. So it's very important when you're nurturing your leads that you're giving them the right information. So let's talk a little bit about that. When you're having your qualifying questions, so now we know they're able, ready and willing is two totally different things. Just because I'm pre-approved and I've got an 800 credit score doesn't mean I want to do this. Doesn't mean I want to sell my house or I want to buy. What are some of the things that you talk to them about to find out what their readiness is?
My biggest thing, just because I like to talk to people, is one, motivation and education. That's just two things. You want to find out, why are they looking to make a move? What has them, what's their motivation? How motivated are they? And then just build off of that.
Mhm.
We're looking to downsize or get a bigger home. Find out how important that is to them. Why are you looking to downsize? Your kids move out of college and it's just you and your spouse or whatever. Just use everything they say to build a conversation, kind of, I guess, have a response to whatever they say. And then as you get further into that, and then me is just building a relationship with them and then getting into that conversation, if you can get their attention long enough, and then educate them as far as, here's what I'm going to do for you. If you're not ready to buy right now, I mean, if they are a B or a C buyer, let me send you some listings. Then go over what they're looking for, find out their criteria, any particulars they're looking for, start sending them listings. And then, within our CRM, we put them on a drip program where it'll email them ever so often, just depending on what program they're in. I'll check back with them. Usually when I start that, I'll check back with them within a week. Hey, are you getting the listings I'm sending you? How those look? Are they okay? Do you need me to make any adjustments? Is there something you don't like that you do like, or you want to see more of? So it's, again, we're trying to build another conversation. I'm trying to build a relationship with them. And then, after that, we try to say, just try to see if their motivation is any stronger, or if they really just, I guess you just kind of got to feel it out over the phone to see if they're, even more ready to buy now. Go back over their time frame, which is something I would have asked in the first conversation. And basically we do the LP Mama. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Mhm.
Kind of go back over that, just kind of rehash it. And so you're still looking in the 200 price range. You're still looking for 2 to 3 bedrooms, or to me, it's always anything just to keep a conversation going.
I love that.
And building that relationship. And then, after that, I mean, even at that time, try to get them in front of an agent on my side of it. I know you guys are outside agents, but
Try to get in front of them then.
yes.
Yeah, try to get in front
Well,
of them.
yeah, in your role, we'll say, even ask for a meeting, yeah, hey, why don't we meet up and let's talk more about it, or you want me to go show you this house? If you've seen, they looked at it, they're really interested in a certain house, we'll offer to show it to them. So, and those, since if they are an A, actually an A or a B or a C, I mean, I still want to follow up with them. I may go to 2 weeks, something after that. And just I keep an eye on, I don't know what all of you guys have, but I do keep an eye on what they're looking at. Sometimes they have like their favorites or their hot leads that they save in their favorites. We can see that.
So it's important to have a CRM. Let's start with that. So a lot of you are in my Boomtown group, so we do use Boomtown in coaching for most of the agents who participate, and others might use Command or just on the MLS. And even if you're using the MLS, you can copy yourself on those emails that they're getting. So it's all an access for you to be able to see what they're looking at, no matter what you're using. It's just important that you're using something in some way to be able to organize, how am I going to follow up with them? So if you're using the MLS to set up your search, you need to be using something else to be able to add notes and have another place to be able to follow up, which would be command if you're using the MLS. So I like part of what you said, I want to go back to it, was not only did you ask them, for example, are you selling because you're downsizing? But tell me more about that. You're downsizing, why? And that's where the connection starts. It's not just, let's find out the pain points and end it there. The pain point is we're downsizing or we need to upsize. Well, why do you need to upsize?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity. A way to lighten the blow of the question for me is always, well, just out of curiosity, why are you upsizing? You know, it makes it sound less threatening.
And once you build that, you get their motivation, you start to build that relationship, then I think, like I said, education, you need to let them know what's happening, what you're going to do. Okay, I'll call you back in 2 weeks, or I'll call you back next week. If you do see a home you want, let me know. Give me a call, then I'll have someone show it to you, or in your case, I'll show it to you, or we can go do this. Just let them know what to expect from you next, I think is a good idea.
It's really important that you also add, I'll follow back up with you in a week or two. Because then they're more likely to answer. If you already set that expectation. And then you're more likely to do it because you know that you said you were gonna. So then you better follow up. They expect you to. By the way, guys, here's another living in belief. They don't want me to call them. Well, if they don't want you to call them, they wouldn't have given you their correct phone number. They could put a fake number. The system doesn't know. So if they didn't want you to call, they would give you a fake number.
Mhm.
So there's that. Questions about ABC buyers and sellers, or able, ready, and willing? Anybody on Zoom? All right. Then we are going to proceed to the scripts. So in your book, you're going to move to page 13.6. And what I'd love to do is do a 10-minute breakout for you guys to use the buyer lead sheets here and kind of script that together. So basically in your book, it's sort of a version of LP Mama with just some different qualifying questions. So why don't we go ahead and break for, I don't know if Lynn's on here with a timer or not. Lynn, tell me if you are. If not, then we'll just go ahead and say at 10 o'clock, we'll come back. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and other market centers, go ahead and have your agents script the buyer lead sheet for about 10 minutes. wrap it up. All right, guys, let's get it wrapped up and then we will move forward. So about 1 more minute to wrap it up. All right, there, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna break again to do the seller scripts. So you can, guys, we're gonna get started.
No.
I need a little bell. I need to get an app on my phone with a little ding ding.
No voice, trust us.
Yeah, yes, I do have a loud voice. That is not a lie. All right, so tell us any takeaways from that. How did you feel about it? I know we in coaching do a lot of scripting, and in particular, we do the LP Mama script, but when you guys are sitting there and you're qualifying and taking terms, what questions, thoughts, do you find that to be easy? What concerns and what questions do you have for us about it? Anybody in this room or anyone on Elevate or Living, feel free to unmute yourself or on Zoom with any questions. Sorry, guys, I know those on Zoom aren't really scripting, but anybody have any questions? Thoughts, takeaways, something you learned? Didn't know?
Just, tell me more about the reason for wanting to downsize or upsize,
Yeah,
just to carry that conversation further.
yes,
That's awesome.
I like that. Yeah, because when you're on the phone with somebody, if they cut you off in less than 60 seconds, you won't have got a lot of information. And can you really make a connection in that short of time? And if you make a connection in the first couple of calls, you're much more likely to have a relationship that you're building, right?
Mhm.
Anybody at Elevator Living have anybody in the room with any thoughts, questions, or takeaways from scripting? Stuff in the chat here. All right, then, moving on. So let's take a look at the seller scripts. So let me talk a minute before we break away again. So for the seller scripts, I like to call this the pre-listing appointment. So here's a little tip for you when you have a listing that's coming up. I schedule my phone meeting with them to ask them their questions as an appointment. I don't do a two-step listing appointment unless I'm forced to. A two-step listing appointment could be, please now come out and tell me the things I need to do and give me the price. But just so you know, I'm not going to list until, a month from now or 2 months from now or whatever. That forces a two-step appointment, right? Because you're going to have to go back. If it's someone who's ready to go, I don't want to go there and then find out about the house, then have to go back and do the CMA and take it back for appointment number 2. I don't do that. So I want my first appointment to be over the phone. So I actually schedule that phone call, which is to go over a pre-listing questionnaire in the Drive. For those of you in coaching, we use that. We've stole the Jose Medina red sheet. So that's the questionnaire. You don't send it to the client to fill out. This is an over the phone appointment. So even if I'm on the phone with Carl Ann right now, because, hey, thanks so much. Great for taking my call. I know that Chanel, said that you were thinking about selling your house. Wondered if now, or if there's a time later today or tomorrow that we can set a time to be able to go over some information about your house. And maybe your husband can be on that call too. So I can be ready. So when I come to the appointment, I'll bring all the information that I know that you're wanting me to bring. Because remember that, guys, if you show up empty-handed without a CMA, they're like, what just happened? If they're having multiple people coming to look at their house, you can bet you that the other agents came prepared. It doesn't look prepared if you don't have a CMA. And to answer that, a red sheet is just another name for a pre-listing questionnaire that I have, that I've shared with the agents in my coaching. It's just something that Jose's team regularly uses. And he brought one today. Yeah. So it's just anyway, either way, whatever questionnaire you're using, it's basically, I'm going to say similar questions. It's finding out all the information about the house, why they're selling, finding out their pain points, again, similar to the buyer qualifying, but it's the seller qualifying. And the reason that I want that phone call to seem like an appointment is then there won't be a void of a two-step process, right? But I'll have made the first one over the phone, which I need to know. So it's not just the information that I can find on the tax record. The tax record is only going to tell me basic data, year built, square footage, bedrooms, baths, and might not even be correct. Maybe they tore a wall down between 2 bedrooms because it was a 4-bedroom house, and now they have a bigger master bedroom. So now it's a 3-bedroom, even though it said 4 online, right? I'm always doing an MLS search of that house as well to see if it's ever been sold on the MLS before. Here's a little trivia for you. The reason that sometimes you don't find a house on the MLS, this is really hard to even say, there hasn't always been an MLS. I know that sounds crazy. And in my career, there was not an MLS when I started. Do you know what there was? Binders of paper listings on a shelf in alphabetical order in the back of the office. That was our MLS. We shared paper. You would bring a stack of your new listings to all of the different agencies. Crazy. Hard to believe that we did business that way. So when you're like, gosh, they said that they sold their house with an agent 25 years ago, but I'm not finding it on the MLS because the MLS didn't exist back then. So that's why you're not going to find it when someone's lived there for a long time. In any case, the thing that I really, really want to know from the seller is, tell me a little bit about the condition of the house. That's not something that you're going to find, whether it was listed previously on the MLS. Those are photos from the other owner, unless it's expired that they listed or something like that. If I don't know condition, I don't know which comps I'm picking. However, I don't trust they're telling me the truth, ever. This sounds really strange, and maybe you gauge this too. Here's how I can tell someone who's clean. Are you going to take pictures when you come? Because it's not going to be ready. That's a clean person. That is not a not clean person. The not clean person says this. Okay, well, we've been cleaning all week. That's not the clean person. We live in opposite world, apparently. Because when you walk in the house, you're like, wonder what it looked like before the 2 weeks of cleaning. Right? It's to me, that's what I experience. How about you when you're qualifying with things?
You can usually tell, so.
Yeah, we live in opposite world. I am the person who's like, oh God, the sun is shining through my window and I see a smudge.
Yes.
And I'm like, don't look over there, because I'm a not so clean person. But again, there's people I assume will go with this. People have bad eyesight and need glasses. More people in the world need glasses because surely they don't see this mess. Like, do you see what I see? And you live here? My goodness. An interesting thing too, I will find it's a wonderful thing if you have a buyer that's also a seller for a couple reasons. One, it's 2 transactions. And by the way, don't forget that every buyer is probably a seller. Odds are they are, and every seller's probably a buyer. And the reason that you don't get 2 transactions is what?
Don't ask.
You don't ask. Do you know how many times I've sat in a listing appointment when they've already bought something and I say this, why isn't your buyer's agent sitting here?
Mhm.
And it's always the same answer. I didn't know that they did listings. I thought they only worked with buyers.
Huh.
They didn't ask.
Mhm.
Strangely enough, a listing of mine that took 3 months to sell and it sold the day after it expired, thankfully. And when that finally happened, she said to me, Tom said, I'm surprised Gina hasn't asked us yet to get to find us a house. And I went, I thought we had this conversation when we first listed the house, but I didn't push it because the house was expiring and they were certainly not going to buy without selling. They could, but they didn't. So even I was guilty of it just because I had the conversation with them 3 months ago when I listed the house and I set them up in a search. We expired, so they weren't going anywhere. And within 1 day, she just joked and said, Tom said, I'm surprised Gina didn't jump on it and ask us immediately to start showing us houses. So we're all guilty of forgetting to have that conversation, even if we already had it. I'm just happy that she brought it up. Because gosh, could that mean that they want to go to an open house and buy a house next week? It could. In any case, lots of tips on questions that are on here, but a couple of really important things obviously is the condition. So I advise you to bring a wide range of comparables. And by that, I don't mean of location. I mean of conditions that you see, because you could be surprised when you get there. It could be the opposite of what you're thinking. So I bring enough to cover my bases if I can, and then I eliminate the ones that don't really compare. So if there's ones that are much more updated, I may eliminate those when I'm going through the CMA, right? Or if it's the opposite, which sometimes happens, gosh, you didn't tell me the basement was finished this nice, kind of a thing. Cover all your bases if possible. I also use the photos of the houses of the comps as this. Okay, this property is 220. We're going to be 189 unless you can make it look like these pictures. Can you make it look like these pictures? And then we can get the 220. Another question that I always ask, and I know that you do, is tell me if you were a buyer in today's market, what would you pay for your house? It's a script, by the way. That's a script. It's not, what do you think your house is worth? I don't care what you think it's worth. I want to know if you were a buyer in today's market, what would you pay for your house? Doesn't mean they're still not going to give you some crazy number. Usually you'll hear, well, there's a house around the corner that sold for 250. Yeah, but aren't you a 2-story and that's a ranch or whatever? But it gives me an idea of what they're thinking. I'm not going to use it as a guide. I'm not going to do my comps based on what they say, but I am mindful of, okay, well, they think it's 250. So let's see what we can do. If it's not, then I'm going to bring the real comps and I'm going to bring a couple of comps that are 250. And the reason I'm going to do that isn't because, oh gosh, I don't want them to see these 250s because they're going to think their house compares. I'm going to do the same thing. This is why you're not 250. These houses have 3-car garages and finished basements, and they're totally updated. And I don't mean like oak in the 80s updated. I mean, gray cabinets and granite countertops updated. And they don't have floral wallpaper that's orange and green. I know wallpaper is coming back, so I won't just say wallpaper. So that is a thing. And I'm going to bring those comps just to basically disrail their thinking that they could get that, right? So don't be afraid to ask them what they would pay for the house in today's market. Bless you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to break again for another 10 minutes. And you guys can go with the same partners now and do your pre-listing questionnaire. So we'll come back just about 10:30. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the breakout sessions here and proceed. We've got Cross Country gonna come in here in a few minutes and talk to us a little bit about lending and updates on that as well. All right, so question, thoughts, takeaways from the seller questionnaire. Brian and I were just talking about looking at this, comparing it to the red sheet. One of the things that we don't like on here is the question that is, what would happen if your house didn't sell?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a question. So like, that's probably not gonna be asked, especially in today, yeah, right, in today's market. I would slip in there more of a question about, if you like everything that I have to say about my marketing and we can agree on price, shall I go ahead and bring a for sale sign and will you be ready to list? That's a question. Would you be ready to list if we can come to terms and you like all the marketing? Should I bring a for sale sign? Of course, you still got to get pictures, but it really is, the question is if you like me, will you list? So should I come prepared with my paperwork and all of that, right? So tell us a little bit about your scripts with that and how you kind of intertwine the red sheet with some of these questions, and what does that usually look like for you when you're prospecting for a seller?
Typically, they're basically the same, our red sheet and this, I mean, in the big picture. Usually when I fill out a red sheet, that means somebody's already agreed to meet with us, so this is happy, joy,
Yeah.
So I'm doing my job. And I did want to point out one thing, like when I first started, you go so long without getting somebody to say yes, and then when you do, you're like all pumped up and your heart starts racing, you want to hurry up and get through these questions, you don't want to lose them. So the biggest lesson that somebody taught me was this question here says, do you have about 5 minutes so I can ask you some very important questions? You don't have to use those exact words, but it basically sets the tone, it calms you down. You're in the moment. So you just want to say, hey, do you have a few minutes where I can actually ask you some questions and get some information from you? Letting them know that this is what's happening now, back to educating, knowing where the conversation is going. But I didn't do that at first. I didn't ever ask that question. So I felt rushed. I felt like I had to hurry up and quit wasting their time. So set the tone of the conversation. But to me, that's the biggest lesson I've learned in filling these out, is asking, hey, do you have a few minutes that I can get some information from you? So you just slow everybody down and they know what's going on. But I mean, these questions are basically, everybody's seen the red sheet.
In here, yeah.
So it's basically the same thing. Just go through it. A lot of people don't want to answer that question of what they would be willing to pay for their home. Just try to find creative ways to get it out of, because they don't, some people just won't. Well, that's why I'm calling you.
I
That's
do
the
get that one all the time.
Yeah.
Isn't that why I have you coming out?
Aren't you the professional?
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah, I get that a lot too.
I've had those.
The snarky comments like that. And then, and here's my comeback with that, because sometimes they do know and they think they've got this little secret in a box and they want to see if we compare to what their little secret is. And so what I say is, I just want to know when I come if I'm bringing good or bad news.
Oh, that's good.
And sometimes they'll say, oh, okay, I get it. And then they tell me, or I say, hey, listen, I'm going to try to get you what you want. However, I'm not going to give you false information to do it. And then they might, a high D personality who thinks he's smarter than I am is not going to tell me. So you'll have that.
Then there's-
Or the legitimate people that just don't know.
Yeah,
Lived here 40 years. I don't keep up with that kind of thing. I really don't
No.
know.
there's the ones that
Yeah.
they see Zillow, this estimate, and they think that's gospel,
Right.
but it's really not. Or they talked to cousin Jed over in Illinois, that's a real estate agent, that told him that it's worth this. I mean, so, but that's always probably the hardest question on ours is.
Yeah. It is.
Is that, and then, I mean, if they just don't want to tell you, then, okay, leave it blank. Yeah.
Right,
I mean, you just
yeah.
do your best, but I don't like to, because in my position, I don't like to leave any of the empty blanks for our agents. Because I feel like if I'm handing this customer over to them, I want them to do the best, so I want to do my best on my end of it, so that's basically where I stand.
And you're both roles. So you want to do the best for yourself so that when you go there, you're prepared. And sometimes properties aren't easy to do comps on. You know, a newer house on property in a rural area that has 100-year-old homes that are on quarter-acre lots. Like, you know, that makes it difficult. So we gotta have an idea what they're anticipating or hoping, or even what do you hope to get out of the house?
There's always the comment, well, it has good bones.
Yeah, that means it's not
When you
updated.
hear that, no, there's gonna be something else.
How do you come up with a price as an agent? Let's say you have two identical homes,
Mhm.
one has already sold. One was not updated and this person who's trying to list theirs now, they're just totally updated. How would you then?
So we're not appraisers. I don't add a figure. I never say I'm gonna give you 10,000 for that, or I'm gonna give you 40,000 because you have a pool in the backyard. I'm going to dig deep to find comparable properties that are similar in condition. Or I'm gonna say, okay, this one is high, this one is low, we're somewhere in between. You're gonna really use the comps and try to work your way to that price. All right, moving on. So let's talk a little bit about once we qualify these buyers and sellers and we've got all their information, we've had expectations conversations. We know where we stand with them, whether they're an A, B, C client, then what? Then what do we do? And we talked a little bit about what that follow-up looks like, but let's dig a little deeper and talk about, so what kinds of things, let's start with sellers since we're on that. What kinds of things do you guys send regularly to a potential seller who maybe they've either had the listing appointment or they haven't? And maybe that if they did, they're not ready to list yet. Like what kinds of things, like in a combination of emails and calls and that kind of thing what are you doing?
I mean, typically my first step in my role is to follow up with the agent that met with them, see how things went. Usually within a couple days after the appointment, I'll follow up with them, try to get some info if they want to give it to me. And see where they're going. Cause I mean, we really, like I said, once we hand it off to an outside agent, it's them.
They're taking care of it.
Yeah, if I haven't heard nothing in a while, I'll see it, because if the agent is talking to them, it's nice to know, so I really don't follow up with them. If they just kind of fall off of the cliff there, you know, and nothing is, then I'll take them back over. I'll just keep trying to call, set them up on the drip. Typically, we may send them listings that have sold in their area, so basically comps, I guess you could say. Just so it gets that in front of their face to see that, well, hey, this house in this area sold for 205, and it gives them just a picture of what's going on in their area. But I think for the most part, that's about it. We'll keep trying to call. Like I said, if the agent is not having any success with getting in touch with them, they usually send it back over to us if they don't. So at that point, we just keep trying to call
And
them.
with a seller, you know what and why more than you do with a buyer,
Yeah.
I guess. You kind of know where they stand a little different than you do with a buyer. Buyer, it's usually if we find the right house. The seller, there's more, the pain point feels different. We've been relocated for our job. That's why we're selling. Things like that. There's more of a need. However, that also becomes a need for buying too, right? But you're just usually, I guess what it happens with the listing appointment, you've developed more of a relationship because you've gone to their house and you've sat down with them. So that goes to show why having a buyer consultation is so important. We do it with sellers, we have to, right? So I'm much more likely to work with this client as a seller than I am as a buyer because we've gone and we've had that consultation. So flipping to buyers then, what does that look like? Obviously with sellers, it's about what's their pain point and how can we follow up accordingly, right? And with a buyer, it's usually about the house. So what does your follow up and what kind of things do you guys set them up in?
I mean, if they've already seen a house.
If
or-
they've been, so like you've qualified them, they've told you their time frame,
Mhm.
and now they're just waiting for the right house to come on the market.
I keep checking in. Usually if I know they're really motivated, I would say at least once a month at the minimum would be once a month, just to see how things are going, see if anything's changed. Maybe, maybe maybe they had a change in life, maybe they had a kid, maybe they got married, maybe their expectations or their criteria has changed. So always follow up and make sure that they're still feeling like the listings I'm sending them are beneficial to their needs.
And that's key. It's like I'm constantly beating this in everyone's head. Having their criteria correct in their search is vital to them continuing to view properties on your site. If you don't have it right, so the question is always, has something changed or is this criteria correct?
Right, yeah, and keep note of their motivation from when you talked to them before, are you still looking to downsize? Has anything changed? Always, like I said before, build a conversation off of any information you have. That's my biggest thing. But yeah, if their criteria has changed, ask them more about that. You had a baby, well, congratulations. What are you looking for now? I guess you wouldn't want to say it like that, maybe. What are you looking for now?
Yeah, but no, like before we talked, you just got married and you
Yeah.
weren't pregnant, let's say,
Mhm.
and you were looking for a small bungalow. Has something changed?
Right.
Based on life circumstances, opposite of that is last time we spoke, you and your husband were looking for a house and now you're telling me you're getting divorced. So how does that look different, I mean, that does happen. I think someone in our group just had a deal fall through because they were boyfriend and girlfriend and they broke up in the middle of a transaction. So it's who keeps the house, who's gonna pursue the financing now. So like life changes happen to people all the time. And as your agent that you've had a consult with them, you should probably know. It's not meddling. It's just tell me if everything still remains the same with your search. I like to use the example of your website where they're looking at houses, whether it's a portal or whatever it is like Netflix. If I don't see what I'm looking for on Netflix, we're very fast moving people. If I'm looking for a new show and the thing that's on the top isn't something I'm interested in, my first thought is, what the heck is wrong with Netflix? They should know what I'm interested in. And if it happens multiple times, I'm gonna go on to Hulu next time. Right? So that is the same way. If you and you all have me set up in a search because you were a referral, I met you at open house and I was on your website just looking at a house from Facebook. Now I'm in a portal for 3 people. I didn't even know as a buyer that I got set up in a portal from 3 people. So now it's going to be, well, gosh, this person is sending me houses that are way out of my price range. This person's right on the money for what I'm looking for. But this one's following up with me, continuing to ask me, can I get your criteria right? Who am I responding to? Yeah.
There was just an example just happened yesterday. We had a referral lead that came over, was looking for a condo somewhere. I don't know. It was one that like a home light lead that came through to, I don't know, 2 or 3 different agents. Once I called, she answered. She was pretty rude. She says, well, somebody already called me and told me there's no listings in that area, and then hung up on me. I'm like, okay. So basically there's no follow-up plan. This person said, no, there's nothing here, so I'll see you later. So I ended up texting her and I told her, because I saw what area she was looking in, and I told her I'd send her listings. I got her set up on listing alerts and she's been texting me since, because there's nothing she wants right now. I said, but I'll keep you updated on what comes available. She wants a condo in a certain area. And so don't ever give up on people when they hang up on you, or they just, they're rude. Also back to the selling side, you may have somebody that they just bought their house 2 years ago for 189. Well, their neighbor just sold for 300, okay, so now they're all hot. Oh, hey, we could probably sell. Let's do this. Well, they called me and they canceled before the appointment ever happened. So they were just, gung ho there for a minute, and then they decided not. Well, I'm still following up with them just because they told me, well, I've talked to them. Well, we don't want to sell now. We just decided
Well, if they
it's not-
swung so quick one
Yeah.
way, doesn't mean they won't, something can
Right.
inspire them to swing the other way.
Yeah, so now they're probably, I would say every 2 months, I'll just call. Most of the time they won't answer. I haven't talked to them in probably 6 months, but I still call, leave a message. Hey, if you just wanted to see if you reconsidered selling your home, or if you're interested in what your home would sell for today, give me a call. just stay at it. And it's not, I do find it's not always the most important thing to leave a message. It may sound like it, but sometimes I don't leave a message on purpose because I think I get more callbacks from people who I don't leave a message because they just wonder who called.
Yeah.
Now that gives me an opportunity to talk to them. So not 100%, but I do get more callbacks from just not leaving a message because they're curious. So
Well, yesterday I got a call from a meat company. And I was like, does that say meat company? Like, what are they calling? And they did not leave a message. And I was very curious, what, who is this and why are they calling me? And I did call back just to see if it was, and it was a store.
Hmm.
No idea. I don't know who called or what they wanted. But they did. Isn't that strange? So that proves that theory correct. I was curious. So. All right, guys. Well, that is gonna wrap us up. I know Living probably, do you guys need the Zoom? So do we need it? And I know they have their team meeting here. Do you need this Zoom link or you need to host another meeting?
Correct, we do.
Okay, all right, great. All right, guys, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you here tomorrow. I'm gonna let Cliff come in and chat with us here in the office. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gina.
You're welcome.